For many people, the Beatles are considered the closest thing to musical perfection that ever existed. In terms of production, their career was always on an upward climb, and they never suffered a slump. The fact that they broke up with a great album solidified their legacy. But as the years went by, and thanks to testimonies and research, people started to find mistakes in the recordings of the most important band in the world. Nobody is perfect, and in the Beatles' recordings, there are details that make them so unique. Many of them were made unconsciously or by accident. Others that came out due to the problem of having little time to fix them or re-record them, and some others that the Beatles left out just for fun. In today's chapter, we'll take a look at some of the mistakes in the Beatles songs.
1, 2, 3, 4. Tell me why. Start again. What did you do then? You made a mistake. I know you did. Okay. Rhythm and Blues Part 9.
Please Please Me was his second single and his second #1 hit in England. It had various recordings, one for the single and another for his debut album. The second one had a mistake. In the final verse, John and Paul sing different lyrics. The mistake lasts less than 2 seconds, but you can hear they don't sing the same thing, and then they fix it. This happened often in live performances. George Martin left it because he thought it was the best take of all, and besides, they didn't have much time to finish the album.
Imagine I'm in love with you.
The amount of material released by the Beatles at the beginning of their career is amazing. Singles and albums interspersed in a very short period of time that undoubtedly stabilized the band. I'll Get You was another one of the many songs that came out alongside the albums. A small and cheerful track next to the mega hit She Loves You at the end of 1963. Due to the tight schedule, a mistake in the lyrics in the bridge of the song was allowed to remain. Here, it is known that the mistake came from Lennon, who didn't stop on impulse. These mistakes were very difficult to catch on the first listen. The Beatles were recording and going on tour. Surely, when they realized at mixing time, the Beatles were no longer available to fix it. So, there was no more choice. The songs had to come out.
When I'm gonna change your mind, so if I give my heart.
By the time the band reached their 1964 album, A Hard Day's Night, they were already writing ballads of surprising maturity and complexity. If I Fell is a beautiful song where Lennon leads a lovely set of harmonies. In this song, when Paul McCartney comes to the bridge, he can't reach the note and his voice breaks. Despite Paul's effort to fix it, the mistake is clearly perceived. In the mono version of the song, this detail is not present.
Was in vain.
One of the most rewarding unconscious mistakes in musical history. One of the Beatles' first approaches to experimentation in 1964, the Larson effect. I Feel Fine starts with a single percussive feedback note produced by McCartney plucking the A string on his bass and Lennon's guitar, which was leaning against McCartney's bass amp, picking up feedback. This was the first use of feedback on a rock record. Later, Lennon was very proud of this sonic experimentation. In one of his last interviews, he said, "I defy anybody to find a record, unless it's some old blues record in 1922, that uses feedback that way." This is the first song to include a songwriting credit for Ringo. What Goes On is a somewhat odd song in the midst of contemplated Rubber Soul songs. Perhaps the band didn't take so much importance to Ringo's song, because they let Lennon go crazy on guitar. His playing is atypical. In technical terms, if you concentrate on listening to Lennon's guitar, it's a complete mess at times. This example is a bit more tricky and is not an error per se, as there is no known error in the actual recording of this #1 single from late 1967. The real problem came with the promotional video for the song. In the video, McCartney can clearly be seen lip-syncing alongside the other Beatles, but the mistake here appears when his mouth doesn't quite sync up with a little part of the song. This mistake caused him to be off the air in the UK, as the Musicians' Union had a ban against all such practices. It is ironic that this song is included here, as McCartney repeated it dozens of times until the final take. But when singing the last verse, McCartney accidentally changed the occupations of Desmond and Molly, both characters in the song. When he noticed the mistake, Paul decided to drop it to give people something to think about. And we can imagine that the other three Beatles were more than glad that they didn't have to re-record the song again. One of the band's most famous songs, and the one that stayed at number 1 for the most weeks, also has a little accident. We already know the story. Paul McCartney's personal encouragement to Julian Lennon that became a universal expression of support in difficult times. Maybe you need good headphones to hear this detail, but at the moment of the third verse, at minute 2:58, when McCartney is about to reach the climax of the song, you can hear him muttering, "Fucking hell," after making a mistake on a piano note. A unique detail for such an emblematic song. This is not so much a mistake, but Come Together has something peculiar in its recording. At the beginning, you can hear Lennon whispering the phrase, "Shoot me." Then, his voice intertwines with the combination of McCartney's bass and Ringo's percussion. Author Peter Doggett wrote that each phrase passes too quickly to be understood at first hearing, the sound as important as the meaning. Have you ever wondered why this short, fast song is on Abbey Road and appears 17 seconds after the end? McCartney intended the song to be part of the medley, but then decided against it and told engineer John Kurlander to throw the song away. But EMI policy stated the Beatles' songs could not be deleted, so instead, he stuck it at the end of a mix several seconds after the record ended, with "The End." The band liked how that accidental closing worked and decided to leave it there. Originally, Her Majesty complimented the closing chord of Mean Mr. Mustard. In theory, that was the song's place on the album, but for some reason or another, it ended up at the end accidentally. However, here we put the intersection between the two songs and how it should have sounded in the medley of Abbey Road. Also, in the deluxe box of the remix of the 2019 album, there is a medley where Her Majesty is in its original place. This version of the Larry Williams song sung by John Lennon contains another of the mistakes we saw in the beginning of the video. Lennon sings different parts of the lyrics in the middle of the song. This happens because in concerts, he used to change the lyrics, and since it was considered a filler song, they decided not to fix it. If there's something we can contribute today, it is that the Beatles' songs were rarely stopped in their recording due to Ringo's mistakes. But here, something particular happens. At about minute 150, Ringo played a rather complicated fill that gets a little out of control, and for a second, the whole band seems to lose the rhythm. Fortunately, they were able to fix it quickly and finish the song. Next, we hear Ringo's normal fill seconds before. And now, we hear the second fill we were talking about. Much longer and unusual, but it comes out well. Also in this song, Lennon and McCartney again sing different lyrics from the song for a second. We close the video with Let It Be. This one is much more audible and obvious on the single release. When Paul McCartney sings Mother Mary, he plays a very dissonant piano chord with the word Mary, which is then corrected on the next beat. Paul usually took a very perfectionist approach to his songs, and a mistake like this would have been a reason to re-record it, or choose another take. However, the recording sessions for Get Back were quite tense. No one was interested in the recorded material, and Paul was not entirely happy with the treatment given to some of his songs from the Let It Be album.
Mother Mary comes to me.
Well, that's it for now. Like our video if you liked it, and we invite you to subscribe so you don't miss our content. Comment below if you want a second part. There are still dozens of details. Thanks for watching. This is Music Box.
I love her.
You're daft, guy.
George, what did it sound like with the bass doing a funny thing? Did it sound any good or did it sound just utterly crap?